private, and hybrid. So for public now, no capital expenditure to scale up. Why? Because you are not buying anything, you are only renting. It's more or less like you want to do covenant naming ceremony now, and you need shares. If you are using rent, if you want to rent shares from maybe agencies that give shares for hire, that means you are using public. But if you want to buy the shares so that in case maybe 2 years time you have another child, you don't need to go and rent, then automatically you're using private because you own it. So in a computer setting now, public cloud means that you are renting Microsoft infrastructure. You're using Microsoft infrastructure to host your application. Why private? Instead of you to use Microsoft infrastructure, you purchase the infrastructure yourself and you do the maintenance yourself. Why for hybrid? This one is flexible because it's a combination of public and private. Why the next point is applications can be quickly provisioned and deprovisioned. Today, we are going to be deploying several solutions on Microsoft Azure. And we're going to see how we can provision application easily and how we can deprovision application easily, as the case may be. And also, we'll be talking about private cloud. Also, the organization have complete control over the resources because it is private to them. Public cloud, you don't have complete control. The people that have complete control are the public cloud themselves, such as Microsoft, AWS, and Google. So those are the ones that have control over the infrastructure because they own it. But if you are the one that purchased your infrastructure yourself, then it gives the organization complete control over the resources and security. So for hybrid, organization can determine where to run the application. Either they want to run the application in the private cloud or in the public cloud, they can decide. And also, organization pay only for what they use. So in public cloud, you're only paying for what you use. Microsoft will not come and bill you for something that you did not use. So organizations are responsible for hardware maintenance and updates. So for private cloud, it is the organization that is responsible for hardware maintenance and updates. So anything that has to do with hardware and its maintenance is the organization that is responsible. Then for the last point for hybrid cloud, organization control security, compliance, or legal requirements. So for instance, now let me use this point in hybrid cloud. You know that there are some organizations that don't want their data to be in the public cloud. They don't want any of their data to be in the public cloud. So if your organization don't want any of their data to be in the public cloud, you can use hybrid so that those data you don't want to be in the public cloud, they'll be in your private environment. Then data that needs to be in the public cloud, you can now deploy it in the public cloud. That is why hybrid is flexible, because you can decide to run your application either in the public or in the private cloud. So we are going to deep dive into the lab section now, so that at least we are going to understand everything we have been talking about ever since. So I'm going to take us to portal.azure.com. I'll just go to, if you want to go to Azure Portal, you just open your browser, you go to portal.azure.com. So I didn't even spell the Azure well. So you hit enter. So it takes you to the Azure page. Then it will ask you to sign in. So because I've already signed in with my account, so automatically I don't need to sign in again. So before I go further, so does anybody have any question before I continue? Because this is Microsoft Azure portal. So from this Microsoft Azure portal, you can create resources, you can create servers, you can create storage, you can create network. You know, we stated in our definition that cloud computing is the delivery of cloud services, such as networks, then storage, and compute. So we're going to see how to do all this, how to create storage and compute. So does anybody have any question before we proceed? Anybody in the chat? So there's no
Yes,
link.
I have a question.
Yeah, you can ask.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying the class already. So before you get to that portal.azure.com, before you get to that interface that you open, you must have paid for it, right?
Yeah, you must have paid for it. If you don't pay for it, you'll be able to get to that interface, but you won't be able to create any resources. That is the only disadvantage. You won't be able to create anything.
Right.
But you can
All right, thank you
actually
so
use a free trial account. But although, because I know some of us want to get our hands dirty, so don't worry. I'm going to be providing free sandbox that we can be using to create resources on our own. So I'll be giving
Okay,
you
thank you so much.
links to Microsoft Sandbox that you can be using to provision. You can even create virtual machine and do several things. We are going to see them together. So at least your
All
learning
right,
will be
thank you so
very
much.
easy. So this is portal.azure.com. So here now, this is your one-stop shop where you can provision Microsoft Azure resources. So if I click on these three horizontal lines here, if I come down to all services, you are going to see all the services that Microsoft has to offer. So in portal.azure.com, the services are categorized. If I click on AI and machine learning now, we are going to see Microsoft solutions for AI and machine learning. So you can see AI search. So this AI search now, you can deploy it in your application so that it will help the users of your application to be able to search for diverse things in the internet. Then we have anomaly detector. So what this anomaly detector do is that it identifies potential problem early on time. You know that the reason why people have problem is because they are not able to identify or predict the problem. If they can predict it early, it won't happen. So these are Microsoft AI solutions. Normally, if you're a developer, you can deploy the backend of this anomaly detector. But Microsoft now is telling you that instead of you to be stressing yourself, deploying all these things, come and use our service. So all these are platform as a service. We talked about platform as a service, whereby Microsoft is telling you you don't need to care about the backend or the way the application is working. Just come and use our platform and deploy your application. So this is just an example of platform as a service. We have both services. Some of us that go to all these banking apps. If you want to ask questions, there is a booth there. Like Zenith Bank, their own is Viva. They will say, just ask Viva. Then UBA Bank, their own is Leo. They will say, ask Leo. So those are both services whereby if you have any question, you can ask them, they will answer it. So all those services are actually in Microsoft Azure. We have Face API. Those of us that use iPhone, we have what we call Face ID. Aside iPhone, even Android phone has it. So those things needs all this backend behind the scene to actually function. So Microsoft has all these among their services. If we come to analytics service now, we are now going to see the data services such as data lake analytics, Azure Databricks, HD Insights, Data Factory, and all. Then if we come to compute, that is where we have virtual machine. So virtual machine is a compute infrastructure. You can use it for compute. We have Azure Virtual Desktop. This one is used to maybe, for instance, you have remote workers. You want them to collaborate. You can use virtual desktop to transform your remote work and collaboration with Azure Virtual Desktop. So the ultimate cloud-based desktop and app virtualization service. So this is more or less like a cloud virtualization service. So normally, if you want to scale your virtual machine now, let's say for instance, you want to virtualize your server. All you just need to do, you can either use VMware or you use Hyper-V to virtualize your server. So in that case, it means that you are the one managing the VMware infrastructure or the Hyper-V infrastructure. But if you're using Azure Virtual Desktop now, this virtual desktop is more or less like you can create a virtual machine in Azure and virtualize that virtual machine so that multiple remote workers can use it. Multiple people can be using one virtual machine and it will be working for them. So that is an example of Azure Virtual Desktop. So all these are Microsoft Compute services. Then if we come to containers now, so for containers now, we can create container instances. So we are going to be creating some of all this today. We'll be creating container instances, we'll be creating virtual machines, we'll be creating app services, we'll be doing some whole lot some of creation today. So let's just teach you. So all these are container services. We have database. These are Microsoft database services. We have DevOps. So if you want to use Azure DevOps, or you can use this solution. We have Azure DevOps Organization. We have Azure Deployment Environment. We have Azure Load Testing. We have Microsoft DevBox. We have Microsoft DevOps Pods, Azure Lab Services, DevTeps Labs, and projects. So you can actually do all this with Microsoft Azure. So we can see that Microsoft Azure is a platform where you can manage Microsoft Cloud services. So all this that we have here, they are all cloud services. They are all cloud services. Microsoft Entra ID is a cloud services. Managed identity is a cloud services. Identity governance is a cloud services. If we come to general now, we'll see everything. All of them is here. So we have resources and management groups. All these are cloud services. So we are going to see how we can create resources in Microsoft Azure. So far so good. Does anybody have any question in what I've just covered? Any question? Because we have not really gone deep, but I just want to be carrying everybody along. Does anybody have any questions? Like what Azure Portal is used
Thank you so
for?
much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Yeah, I'm wondering, as you are just teaching, I'm just trying to see something. Now, if I am a programmer, I do Python and the rest, you call me a programmer. So if I
Yeah.
am certified in this field, what do I call myself?
Okay. You're a programmer, right? You can call yourself a
No,
developer.
if I okay, if I am certified with Azure Cloud Computing,
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah,
developer.
you can call yourself a developer because in Azure, Azure is wide. We have Azure
Okay.
administrator. So Azure administrator now. So what an Azure administrator is somebody that can manage Microsoft Azure very well. You can be able to create resources in Microsoft Azure and deploy several services in Microsoft Azure. While a developer now is somebody that focuses on development of application in such a way that you'll be able to deploy application to Azure. So, but basically, a cloud engineer, you have to be able to do all that. You have to be able to deploy applications both in Azure and on-prem. You have to be able to do so many things like as an Azure developer. But basically, if you know how to deploy code, write Python code, then you are a developer. You are a developer.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, sir. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Amos, do you have a question? Because I noticed you were muted. You were
Yeah,
unmuted.
yes,
Yeah,
sir.
you can ask your question.
Is a line on the
Your voice is breaking.
is a 900? Is it an area under cloud computing?
Yeah. It's the 900 now. It's the fundamentals of cloud computing. So if you want to know cloud computing, the first thing first is to know the fundamental. So it's a 900 now is what is going to help you understand cloud computing. So to help you understand the fundamentals and the basics of cloud computing, that is what is a 900 will do for you.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's my question.
Yeah. So does anybody else want
Yes,
to
sir.
ask? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I heard you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning,
Sir,
sir.
as a cyber security person, what are the advantages of cloud computing? Has to do with cyber security learning.
Okay. What you are trying to ask now is that your future now, your end goal is to become a cyber security engineer. But
Yes,
you
sir.
want to know what is the advantage of knowing cloud computing and
Yes, sir.
to facilitate your learning of cybersecurity. Is that your
Yes, sir.
question? Okay. So as
Exactly.
it is
Thank you, sir.
now, as it is, if you want to be able to secure a building, firstly, before you even become a Nigerian, if you want to join Nigerian army, let me use physical security as an example. They will first of all take you
Okay,
to
sir.
their training school. They will take you to the bush. You will learn how to be able to defend yourself against attack. You learn how to be able to manage endurance. Sometimes in their training, they don't give them food for 5 days. They want them to endure hardship so that in case they go and face war, they'll be able to survive. So in that way, what they are doing is they are guiding them through what they will face in the future. So for cloud computing now, if you want to become a security engineer, so part of the things you will secure, we have cloud security engineers, people that are just there securing cloud infrastructure. So if you know cloud computing very well, for you to secure cloud infrastructure, it will be very easy because you will understand what you are securing. And if you understand the infrastructure very well, it will be easy for you to secure it. It's just like somebody that knows somebody that knows the environment very well. Maybe you're opening a bank and you want to secure the bank and you don't know where their strong room is. That is where they are keeping money. You don't know. Then it will be as
Yes.
if you are just blind because God forbid you will be protecting the wrong place. Maybe you may be protecting the one office, thinking that that is the strong room. What if that's not the strong room? Maybe that place you are protecting is not the strong room, and they now go to the strong room and take money, whereby you are aware it's not the strong. So if you are learning cloud computing now, it will help you understand the infrastructure very well. Once you understand the infrastructure very well, to secure it will be easy. So most times, if you want to go into IT, if you go into cloud computing, networking is good because those are the things you will see. If you want to even do cybersecurity, it's good you even understand networking so that you know how networking works. Because most times penetration starts from the network before it even comes into the infrastructure. So those are the things that a security engineer is supposed to even know. Supposed to know network, supposed to know cloud computing because cloud computing is like the bedrock or the foundation to the security.
Foundation in the IT.
Yeah. So any other question before we continue?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Emmanuel Olusola, ask your question. Yeah, go ahead.
When you log in now, you go into portal.azure.com, right?
Yeah.
So are we going to open that page in our own system just to go through
Uh,
before we?
yeah, if you open it, the problem is you have to have an Azure subscription before you'll be able to create any resources on Azure. So you need an Azure subscription to be able to create resources. So that is why you won't be able to deploy anything. So until you add your credit card, and most times they don't even accept Nigerian cards. It's only if you have a foreign card that's when they will accept it. They don't usually accept Nigerian cards. That's the challenge.
Okay, sir. Thanks, sir. And sorry, the second question is this. I made this cloud computing Azure cloud. Is there a special group for them, like maybe there's this private group that they create for the members,
Mm.
or we are
So
also
what I'll do is I'm going to share. I'm going to create a WhatsApp group. Then I'm going to share the invite to this particular team so everybody can join. Because I want to like maybe you guys you will just have we'll be having sections maybe in the night. Those that want to join they can join. Those that cannot join, then they can watch the recording. So I'll create a WhatsApp group now and
That's
I'll drop the
wonderful.
WhatsApp. I'll drop it on the chat. I'll drop it on the chat
okay, sir.
so that at least,
Okay, sir.
yeah, I'll drop it on the chat now. So, any other question?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sir. My question is this. I am interested in AI and machine learning. So, in my research, I found out that one needs to have knowledge of cloud computing. So I don't really understand it. Do I need to go through cloud computing first before going for AI and machine learning?
Mm, cloud computing now. You can see now that cloud computing is more or less like even if you want to go into AI and machine learning. So basically, all those things are services in the cloud. So if you come to let's see, let me just copy the link, copy group link. So I'm going to be sharing it. Just hold on. Let me just see. So I'll be dropping the link now on the chat. So if you want to go into AI basically, you can do AI just like that. But if you go to Microsoft Learn, there are some fundamentals that you need to know in cloud computing. So that is why it's important you understand cloud computing first. So once you understand cloud computing, AI will be easier for you. So that's just it. So cloud computing is more or less like the essential, the essential that will enable you to understand to understand AI very well. So I just want to copy the link. I'm coming. I'll drop it on the chat. So I just stopped sharing. I'll drop the WhatsApp community link on the chat now. I mean,
Thank you for doing that, sir.
yeah.
Good
So it will be
morning,
Yeah,
like
thank you
sir.
both.
yeah, ask your question.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello,
I'm
good
with you.
morning, sir, and
Yeah,
everyone.
good morning.
Please, I just discovered the lecture started earlier and I just joined. I don't know if there's anything, if there's a way I can get some of the things that have been taught.
Okay, so we have not really gone too far. We have not really gone too far. So basically, we have not even created anything. So we just started. So don't worry, we have not really done anything that we just talked about what is cloud computing and the concept of cloud computing, and that's just all.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. So someone is asking for EZ900 pass question. Let me see if I can upload it.
Yes, I need it too. Thank you very much.
After the class, I'll drop it on our
Okay.
community. I'll drop it on the community. So firstly now, I'll be creating a virtual machine. So I'll walk us through on how to create a virtual machine. So if you want to create a virtual machine, you first of all come to portal.azure.com. So let me go over it again. You come to portal.azure.com. So basically, that community, while I'm creating it, I want to like set up programs whereby I will be recording videos, but I
Please.
want people to join live while I shoot the video. So you will learn. Then after I finish shooting the video, then I will now like, okay, I will now pause the recording. Then you will now start asking questions based on what I've taught, then I will answer. So I'm using it as a platform to train people. Like I will start from the fundamentals to associate. Then when we are done with associate, we'll now go into security. Then when we are done with security, we'll now go into AI. So we'll be taking it gradually, gradually, like till we get to see everybody at least understand everything they need to know about cloud, and everything will be in my YouTube channel so that at least even if you did not join, you will be able to learn. But the reason why I'm creating the community is more or less like it will be a responsibility. So me, I will be there. And sometimes it may not even be only me. Someone else can say, okay, I want to take this topic. I might just drop a topic on the group and say, okay, if you want to take it, signify. Then I will give you access to my subscription. Then on the day of the presentation, you record. You can come on a call, teach us. When you are done doing your demonstration, we ask questions. So it will not be as if it's only me. So I'm going to create all the topics that I'm going to do practical on for a full month. So we can go and read about it. Anybody that feel like, me, I can take this one, man. No problem. I will give you. Come and speak. I'll post your video on
God bless
my
you, sir.
group chat. So everybody will be developing themselves, and
Yeah,
it will be it will be like how are they calling it? You will motivate me, I'll motivate you. So
You are the best, sir. God bless you.
yeah, yeah, that's
Wow,
just
this is wonderful. Thank you,
Love
sir.
that. Thank you very much, sir.
yeah. So just join the group chat. You can join the group chat. So it's open for everybody to join. So you can even share maybe with some of your friends that you know that yes, they want to really learn all these things. So we can just go and learn further. Okay, so let's continue. So I'll be creating a virtual machine in this class. So if you want to create any resource in Azure, the first thing you do is you log into Azure portal. So people are saying that Azure is very hard. Azure is not hard. Azure is not hard. It's just for you to understand how to use the portal and what you want to do in the portal. So the first thing you do if you want to deploy any resource in Azure is to create a resource group. So I'm going to be creating a resource group. What is a resource group? A resource group now is more or less like a group where you store resources. An example of a resource group is, let me use Living Faith Church as an example. You know that in Living Faith Church, we have various units under the church. We have Deacons Assembly. Aside Deacons Assembly, we have Elders Council. We have ICT group. We have social media. We have breakthrough. We have different groups like that. So as it is like this now, so in those units, you know that those units is just like a group whereby you have different people in the church. So Living Faith Church now is Azure. Why those groups under it is the resource group? Because if, for instance, now you want to see people that are in breakthrough, we will go to breakthrough unit. Their leader will show you, okay, these are the list of the members of my unit that are coming to meeting and they are serious. So in cloud too, it's still the same thing. Azure now is the body where you bring different resources together. So now, but if everything is scattered, you know that even in church, we have WSF. WSF is where you can go so that at least from there you can get care. Because if you say you want to get care from the church, it's not possible because coming to Canaan land itself, the church is very big. For you to meet anybody that they should help you there, it will be very hard. But if you are going to WSF, it will be easier because from your WSF leader, you can easily your WSF leader can easily channel your request to your pastor or so. So as it is here, it's still the same thing here. So if you create a resource group, you can use your resource group to group your resources together so that at least your resources will not be scattered. So first thing, create a resource group. Let's understand that a resource group here now, from the definition, it is a container that holds related resources for an Azure subscription. The resource group can include all the resources for the solution or only those resources that you want to manage as a group. You decide how you want to allocate resources to the resource group based on what makes the most sense for your organization. So as the definition goes, a resource group can include all resources for the solution or only resources that you want to manage as a group. So resource group is good because it helps you manage your resources instead of you to have resources in scattered location. So you can manage your resources in a group. So now I'll be creating the first resource group. I will call it I'll call it cloud computing. I would say maybe yeah, cloud computing. So this is going to be the name of the resource group. Then I will now from here now you can decide to select your region. So now most times I advise people to select region that is close to them because if you select a region that is far from you, it's going to affect it's going to affect the deployment of your resources. So your resources might take time, and aside that, it impacts cost. So it's good to create a resources in a region close to you. Let me give an example. Maybe for instance, now you want to get something in Ikeja, you want to buy something in Ikeja. Somebody that is staying in Abuleba and somebody that is staying in Ota, who will get to Ikeja first? It's the person that is staying in Abuleba that will get to Ikeja first because Abuleba is not far from Ikeja. So if you are creating a resources now
Yes.
and you go and select a long distance, it's going to affect you because if maybe for instance now you want to transfer data from the region where your resources is to your result, it's going to take more time. So that is why region is very important. So West Europe now is not far from Nigeria. So if you go to, let me go to map of Africa, or let me say world map. So if you look at the map of the world now, if I look at this one, so I want us to see it very big. So this is not even big enough. I want something very big. Let me go to the side. Let me see. I just want us to see that it's important to select a region that is close to you. So let me make this very big so that we can identify. So now from here, this is where Africa is. This is Africa. Then let me go to where Nigeria is now so that we'll see the regions that are closer to Nigeria. So let me close this guy. So we can see here now, this is where Nigeria is. Nigeria is somewhere around here. So let me zoom in more so that at least I can picture Nigeria better. Because I want us to understand why it is important to check your map when you want to create a resources, because when you create your resources, very, very important. So when Nigeria is now, it's somewhere here. So if you are creating a resources and you go and select, let's say you go and select a region in this place, you know it's going to affect you. Because if you want to, maybe you are creating a storage account where you want to be storing information or pictures, for you to retrieve what you are storing in that storage account, it will take longer time to get to you here. But if you deploy your resources in somewhere here, it will be easy for you to get your resources. Because West Europe now, countries we have in West Europe are Italy, South, different countries like that. So for you to get your resources from those West European countries, it is easier than for you to deploy your resources in regions of this kind. So that is why it is important we actually set up resources in, let's say, regions that are actually closer to us. So I'll just select West Europe when I do it. So I'm creating a resource group now. This is the first thing you do. If you have a project or you have a group, this is the first thing you do. You create your resource group first. So now we have what we call automation link. So this link now, let's say for instance, you want to deploy multiple resources. So you can use this link to deploy other resource groups. So we can save it or we can copy. So you can use it to deploy other resource groups. The only thing you will just change is the name of the resource group. So that's just it. But we are not actually using this. But I just want to show us what a template looks like. So a template is more or less like, maybe for instance, you don't want to be doing the same thing over and over again. You can create a template so that anytime you want to do that same thing, instead of you to start from the beginning, you can just go and use the template to deploy it. So let me close this guy. Then we'll just review and create. So we wait for the resource group to create. So now the resource group is already created. So I will now look for the resource group here. You can see it. I have multiple resource groups, but the one we just created is, where is the resource group? I think I might need to refresh this page. So let me refresh the page. So now I've refreshed the page. So if I come down slowly, I'm going to see the resource group. But I mean, am I the one that, okay, let me refresh the portal. So we'll now come down again. Let's check if we see the resource group created. So let me go to page 2. Okay, it's here. CU.YAF.CLOUD computing. So because of the count, if I increase the count to 50, it's going to show. But because I have several resources, so now it's here. CU.YAF.CLOUD computing resource group. So after creating a resource group now, the next thing I'm going to create is network. You know that if you are setting up an infrastructure for a client, let's say for instance now, as cloud engineers, it's just like you are the architect. You are the one that will start the whole infrastructure process from the beginning. First thing first, after creating your resource group, the next thing you do is to create your network. You need to create your network. So in real life scenario, normally without network, no infrastructure can ever work, because it is the network that will facilitate communication among computers, from the servers to computers, from the applications to computers. So that is why we are going to be creating network after creating our resource base. So I'm going to walk us through how we can create a virtual network in Microsoft Azure. So virtual network is not different from your physical network. But the only difference is just that a virtual network, you can't see it, but it is a network. The same thing that your physical network can do, your virtual network also can do it. So now I'm going to just go to the search bar here. Since I already know I want to create a virtual network, I'll just search for virtual. You can see that creating resources in Microsoft Azure is very easy. The only thing is just that just know what you want to create. Once you know what you want to create, it is very easy for you to create the resources. So I'll just click on virtual network. So clicking on virtual network, now you can see that I have several virtual networks. I have AKS VNet, I have AKS control plane VNet, I have enterprise VNet, my first VNet, and my VNet and my VNet. So we can see now that all these VNets are in different resource groups. So this AKS VNet is in AKS workshop. AKS control plane is in Israel's RG. Enterprise VNet is in site-to-site test. My test VNet is in my test VNet. My VNet bit is in AKS RV. So we have, that is why it is important to create resource group. Imagine there's no resource group. That means all the information network will just be in one RG. And if it's in one resource group, it might even confuse me because I may not really know the reason why I created it. So now I'll just click on create to create a new virtual network. So we can see here, it's asking us to select resource group. Additionally, I've not created a resource group before. What I will do is, I'll just click on create new. But because I've created a resource group, I'll just select the resource group that I just created. So in selecting the resource group, what it means is that this is the resource group here that I want to actually deploy my virtual network to. So I will select this resource group, and I'm selecting YAF.CLOUD computing resource group. So I will come down. Now I need to give the virtual network a name. So the name I'm going to give it, I'll give it YAF VNet. So it is important, if you are creating your resource group, you give them names that are unique to what you are creating. You cannot be creating a virtual network now and you say YAF compute, because it's different. If, for instance, now you are handing over to another person to manage the environment, the person will be confused. So it's better if you want to name your resources, you give them name that is related to what you are creating. So after doing all this, we have two areas. We have security, we have IP address, and we have tag. I'm going to be explaining all these things. So we can see here from the definition of a virtual network. A virtual network is the fundamental building block for your private network in Azure. Just like you have private network in your local environment, there's no office in this world that doesn't have network infrastructure. And network infrastructure is the first thing they create. Because if you don't have network, when your workers come to the office, how will they browse? How will they communicate? How will they even use their systems? There's no way they can use their systems. So VNet is very important, and it is the fundamental building block for your private network in Azure. So what does VNet do? It enables many types of Azure resources, such as virtual machines, to securely communicate with each other. So the internet and on-premise network. So with your VNet now, it doesn't mean that you can only communicate with resources in resources only in Azure. If you have your own local infrastructure, you can also communicate with your local infrastructure. That is now what hybrid cloud is, combining public and private. So if you have a virtual network and you want your virtual network to communicate with your local network, that means you are going hybrid. That's the meaning. So which, as time goes on, we are going to understand all these things, because that's why I created that community, because I know this year youth training is going to end, let's say 3 months time. But after the training ends, I want us to still have a community where some of us can still come, ask questions. Maybe, for instance, now there are job opportunities. We'll be posting it there. We'll know that we have a community. If somebody reach out now and say, we need somebody that knows how to do all these things, so you can go to the community and say, okay, let's create, this person will help us, which all of us we are going to work to make the community work. Because some people may be in charge of social media, some may be in charge of different things. So we have to sell the community. As we are learning, we need to post it on LinkedIn so that people will know that, okay, this community, people are really learning something here. So that's just how it is. So it will be like a place where we can build ourselves and we can learn. So now this is the basic area. So if you are creating any resource on Azure, this should be your area of concern because all these are like tabs. Now we are done with this first part. So this first part now, we already created a resource group before we started creating a virtual network. So the next thing we did, we named the virtual network. Then we selected a region, which we understand what's the importance of region. So now, the next area now that we'll go to, you can click on security here, or if you don't want to click on security, you can click on next. It will still take you to security. So now we have virtual network encryption. So what this encryption does is that it helps you to encrypt your virtual network. If you want to encrypt a hard disk, now let's say you want to encrypt your hard disk or your hard drive, what you are doing is that you are putting password so that if somebody wants to access your hard drive, the person must first of all provide that password. If the person doesn't provide that password, the person will not be able to access your hard drive. Example is BitLocker. So you can encrypt systems with BitLocker so that if somebody wants to even access your, what are they calling it, your system, the person will need a key to access it. If the person don't have that key, the person will not be able to access it. So you can also use virtual network encryption to encrypt your virtual network. So you can see here, if you enable virtual network encryption to encrypt traffic, you can enable it to encrypt traffic traveling within the virtual network. Virtual machines, virtual machines must have accelerated network enabled. So now, if you are enabling virtual network encryption, for those that want to write the exam, you must make sure that your virtual machines that you are going to deploy in this VNet must have accelerated networking enabled. So if you don't have accelerated network enabled, then traffic to public IP address will not be encrypted. So what it means is that this is a layer of security. You see why I'm telling you that cloud computing is more or less like if you are doing cloud computing, you are also doing security because you must secure what you are deploying in the cloud. So now this is a security for virtual network. When you encrypt your virtual network, it encrypts your public IP. So with public IP, what it means is that you can access your virtual machines from anywhere using the public IP, which we are going to actually deploy a virtual machine. But I just want to take us step by step. I don't want to rush things, but let's just understand virtual network first before we even say we want to be talking about the other parts. So as it is now, virtual network encryption is a security that you can apply to virtual network to prevent public IP, to encrypt your public IP, so that if somebody wants to even access your public IP from outside, it's going to protect it from maybe brute force attack. Maybe somebody wants to be trying multiple wrong passwords to access your server. So all the things I'm saying now might look strange to us, but as time goes on, I promise you, it's going to be easy for you to understand. Then the next one is Azure Bastion. So Azure Bastion now, this one is a paid service. So what this Azure Bastion does is that it provides secure RDP stroke SSH connectivity to your virtual machine over the TLS. If you are using public IP to access your virtual machine, it is not a secured way of accessing your virtual machine. The secured way of accessing your virtual machine is Azure Bastion. So Azure Bastion now is a paid service. So it enables you to access your virtual machine over a trusted layer security. So when you connect via Azure Bastion, your virtual machine does not need public IP. So what it means is that public IP is risky because when we say an IP is public, it means it is public, everybody knows it. But if it is private, that means it is private to only you. But Azure Bastion now is a paid service. It's not cheap. It's something that if you want to use it, you have to pay for it. So it is a security that you can use for your virtual machines and in your virtual network. So that's just Azure Bastion. So the next one now is Azure Firewall. So Firewall now is more or less like it's a managed cloud security service that protects your virtual network. So if you enable Firewall now for this virtual network, what it means is that Microsoft Azure Firewall will be in the middle between people that are trying to access your environment and people inside your environment. That means Azure Firewall now will be like a shield. It will be like your armor bearer, somebody that is standing anytime there's any attack, the firewall will be preventing it. If somebody wants to access your environment now, of course, you are going to create firewall rules. You can say if somebody wants to access this port in my environment, prevent access. So with firewall, you can create rules to prevent access to your infrastructure. So these are security for virtual network. Then we have Azure DDoS network protection. So what this Azure DDoS network protection is more or less like, for instance, you have a fintech application like let's say you are using Jumia application, and you know that Jumia do what we call Black Friday. So when they are doing Jumia Black Friday, everybody will want to buy because things is very cheap. So at that time, some people might want to take advantage of that to be sending fake traffic to Jumia website so that people that want to really buy, they will not have access to the Jumia site. So it's more or less like, maybe for instance now, I don't like Jumia. I don't want Jumia to sell. So I can just be pushing fake traffic. I'll just be pushing like different traffic, like a lot of people, I'll just be pushing requests to the application. I can push like 20,000 requests at 1 minute. So if I push 20,000 requests, if somebody like you now that wants to buy things from Jumia during that their Black Friday, you log in, you see that the site will be loading. It will just be loading. Jumia, they will think that they are making money, but they are not making money. People are just pushing unusual traffic to their site so that they can prevent people from accessing it. So if you are hosting your application on Azure, if you enable Azure DDoS network protection, so what DDoS means is that is distributed denial of service. That is what DDoS means. So if you enable Azure DDoS network protection, you are going to prevent that from happening. So let's even read the definition here. Azure DDoS network protection is a paid service that offers enhanced distributed denial of service mitigation capabilities via adaptive tunneling, attack notification, and telemetry to protect against the impact of DDoS attack for all protected resources within the virtual network. So if you enable DDoS network protection now, if those unusual actors, those bad actors, if they want to come into your virtual environment, automatically it's going to prevent them from coming into your virtual coming into your environment because DDoS protection will be in place. So these are various security for virtual networks. Let's not forget, one is virtual network encryption. So what this encryption does, it encrypts traffic from your public IP. So it allows traffic to your public IP to be encrypted. It makes it secure. Why Azure Bastion now is more or less like it's a secure way to access your virtual machine over TLS. So later, some of us can still read up on all these things. Once you read up on all these things, it will be easier for you to even understand more. So let's go next to public IP. So now public IP is very important because the public IP you create is more or less like the IP that will be assigned to the resources you are creating and to computers. So in a local environment now, we have what we call routers, we have switches. So this virtual network now has router, it has switches. Because with this virtual network, you can have access to the internet also. So it has a default gateway. It has those features that our local network have. So firstly, you are going to create a subnet. But before you create subnet, you need an address space. So an address, yeah. Is anybody talking? Okay. So now let's just continue. So you need an address space. So what an address space is more or less like you are dividing your virtual network into several subnets. So if I'm using this particular address space, now we can see we have 65,536 IP address. It is too much because if you are a cloud engineer, you need to make sure everything you are doing, you calculate it. Because how can you say you want to be given 65,536 IP address when you know that the organization is just below 1,000 and their expansion, even if they want to expand, they can't go above, let's say 5,000 or so. So this is too much. So as a cloud engineer, you can come here, you can reduce it to, let's say, you can say 23. If you say 23 now, that means you now have 512 IP addresses. So now, if I come down, I select 24. we have 256 addresses, but this is too small. So you can just go up and select 21. So if I select 21, and that means I have 204 IP addresses. So basically now, this is my address space. So from this, my address space now, I already have 2,448 IP addresses. So this address, out of these 248,000 addresses, I can now divide them into subnets so that users will not be in maybe one particular subnet. So this is how a real production environment is. So here now, you can rename this subnet. You can, if you want to rename this subnet, you can just call it, or maybe what I'll do is I will even delete it so that we can just create a new subnet. So I'll delete this subnet. So if you want to create a new subnet from the IP addresses here, you just click on add subnet. So once you click on add subnet, you can give the subnet a name. So I will say maybe let me say client, or let me say computer, or let me say domain computer subnet, domain computers. So now, as the engineer now, if you are this subnet now, we call it domain computer. As the engineer, you now ask the person that you're working for, how many computers are in this domain? If the person tell you that the computers we have are 150, then you can go for /24. Because if you go for /24, it means that you have 256 addresses that those computers can have. It's fine. But if the person now tell you that our company is a small company, and we just need, like, let's say 15 or 20 addresses, you just come down here, you reduce it. You can come down to let's say 28. So can you see something? Because our address space, the address space we selected here is /21. So you can't go more than /21 because subnet is more or less like you are dividing the address you have into smaller parts. So since the client told me that, okay, domain computers that we have are just, let's say, maybe 50, I can now say, let's go for /26 because /26 will give you 64 IPs. Then you will now come down. So if after you have identified the address space to be the size to be maybe /26, so you can decide to come down and actually do some other security for the subnet. So for subnet now, you can enable network address translation gateway. If you want to enable it, you can enable it. But the only advantage of this is more or less like it simplifies internet access for virtual machine by using network address translation gateway. So all these are requirements. If you are working for a Microsoft partner, if you want to deploy any cloud solution, you have to make sure that you ask the customer, do you need network address gateway translation? So if you want to create a network security group for this subnet, you can just create one so that any resource you deploy to this subnet is automatically assigned to this network security group. So we have service endpoint. So a service endpoint allows traffic to specific Azure resources from your virtual network over service endpoint. So if you want resources to have private access, so you can use service endpoint to do that. So we have others like subnet delegation. You can delegate subnet to service. You can do several things from your subnet. So this is the first subnet we are creating, which is domain computer subnet. I'll click on add. So after adding domain computer subnet, I will now add another subnet again. So this subnet will be for servers. So I'll just call this subnet, I'll call it servers subnet. So I'll just say servers subnet. That means I don't want my client's computer and my servers to be in the same subnet. So this one now, maybe the servers are supposed to be 10. I can just reduce it to /28 so that I will just have just 16 IPs there. So, and it's my server subnet. Then I'll just come here and click on add. So now I've created two subnets. One is for domain computers and one is for servers subnet. So now the next one I want to do here is I'm going to add another subnet for applications. So this subnet now we'll call it application subnet. Application subnet. So this subnet now are going to be for application. The application I'm going to be deploying to the environment. So this application now, normally, I know that I don't need much application. I just need, let's say, minimum of 5 application. So I'll just select it here and click on add. So now, how many subnet do we have? We have domain controller subnet, server subnet, and application subnet. What it means is that from these 2084 IP addresses, I've only picked 64 plus 16 plus 8. I still have a lot of IP left. So that is why, as a cloud engineer, in creating your virtual network, you need to be intentional about all these things because you are the one that will calculate, okay, how many IP address will you need? But it is good to use a large IP address because growth is inevitable. Growth is inevitable. So it is important that you prepare for growth. You prepare, okay, if these people are growing now, what will happen? Okay, at least I'm giving them all this. Tomorrow now, staffs can increase. They can see, okay, they now have up to like, let's say 90 staff that will need clients that will need access to the virtual network. That means you have to increase this. 64 will not be enough again. You have to increase it. So that's just a virtual network. So after doing this, you come to Nest. So if you come to Nest now, you can see that you can create tags. So tags now is more or less like it helps you to categorize resources. So you can create a tag for different resources. You can create tag for virtual network. You can create tag for virtual machines so that you can group those resources. Then if you want to calculate the amount of money you are spending, it should be easier for you to know. So after that, we'll just go to review and create so that we can create this virtual network. Then after creating the virtual network, we'll now create a virtual machine. So we are going to be understanding it from the beginning. Let's not forget, the first thing we created was a resource group. So we created this resource group, YAF Cloud Computing. Why did we create it? We created it because we want to create our resources inside this resource group. I don't want to have resources flying. I want them to be on a separate, I want them to be on a single resources so that if I want to go to YAF, anything YAF now, I know that it's in YAF Cloud Computing resource group. So now these are the basics I selected. Then under security, remember, we did not enable any security for the virtual network. We did not enable Azure Bastion. We did not enable Azure Firewall. We did not enable Azure DDoS because all these are paid services. Me, I don't have money for that. So the next one is addresses. So this is the address space. So what it means is that from this address space now, I can divide these addresses into several subnets. So we call them subnets. So you can divide them into several subnets. So from here now, I have 64 addresses for domain computer. Then I have 16 addresses for servers. I have 8 addresses for applications. So this is more or less like I'm building a company infrastructure network. I'll now click on create. So wait for the deployment to complete. Once the deployment complete, we'll now go and create a virtual machine. So does anybody have any question before we go? So that while we wait for the deployment, you can just ask your questions. Does anybody have any question? Yeah, ask.
I have a question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, please. Actually, I just
You just
got into
joined, right?
the.
Don't worry.
Yes.
Don't worry. I'll drop the recording on our WhatsApp group. Just try to join that WhatsApp group. I'll join the recording so that you will always watch the recording later. Don't worry. I'll drop it.
So is it the normal WhatsApp group, like the general WhatsApp group that
Anyone. Both
Mm.
general WhatsApp group, because we created a new WhatsApp group now so that we can maybe you guys can it will be like a community. After the YAF program is
Yes,
off
sir.
now, you know that everything is gone, but at least the community will enable us to work together, develop ourselves, and grow. So you can join our community. So anyone works. So our deployment
Okay.
is complete. So
Okay,
we'll
sir.
just
Thank you,
go
sir.
to the resources. Yeah.
So,
So any other person? Yeah, ask your question.
yes, you said you have 3 types of subnets.
I didn't say we have 3 types of subnets. I created 3 subnets. So if your deployment requires you to create multiple subnets, we can see this is the virtual network we just created. So if we come to subnet now, we will see the 3 subnets we created. So these are the 3 subnets we created: domain computer subnet, server subnet, application subnet. So in this subnet now, you can deploy applications to each of these subnets. So in some environments, their subnets might be 1,000. You can't, if you go to Microsoft environments now, Microsoft is a big company. Microsoft cannot have 3 subnets in their virtual network. They will have a lot of subnets there. So these are the security aspect. I think when we deploy Bastion, we would have seen the Bastion service here, but because we did not deploy it, it will not be here. So if you want to create, if I say deploy Bastion now, it will just deploy and I'll be spending money. So I don't want to deploy Bastion. So Bastion helps you to securely connect to your virtual machine. Instead of using public IP, you can use Azure Bastion for secure connection to your virtual machine over a trusted layer security. So firewall is there, EDOS is there, and all. So any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Good morning.
I have a question on
Yeah.
subnet. You said that if there is room for expansion,
Yeah.
if there is room for expansion, you can go and edit and then add it, and maybe choose a different subnet number. I don't know whether 16 or something. So
So you can always expand. You can always expand. So let me give you an
yeah,
example. Just hold on, let me give you an example. So this is it. You have domain computer subnet. So if I click on this domain, maybe for instance now, the computers that are joined to the domain are 59. Then maybe later, they now call me that, guy, we're employing like more 50 people. Our company is expanding. And computers that will be joined to our domain will be almost 150. I'll just come to the subnet for domain controller. I'll click on it here. Then once I click on it, I come to the size here. I will look for a size that can accommodate 150, which is between 24. I'll just select 24 and click on save. But what I was trying to say is that you cannot, your address space now is more or less like you are creating all this subnet from your address space. So we can see now that it has increased to 251 addresses. So now this is where the address space is. So this is your address space now where you have your resources. So you cannot edit it. So that is why when you are creating it, you need to be intentional about your address space, because this address space now is more or less like you are dividing your subnet now helps you divide your address space into smaller IP addresses so that you can distribute it as the case may be. So if you come to this subnet now, you already have 3, which is domain, computer subnet, application subnet, and server subnet. So these are the 3 you have. You can add more, but just that it cannot exceed this number here, 248. So if the business is growing above 248, it means that you have to add another address space. That's just the meaning. Or you delete or you create another virtual network again and start redeploying from scratch. That is why most times Microsoft will tell customers, have a blueprint. Most times Azure Landing Zone, if you're using Azure Landing Zone now, if you want to use Azure Landing Zone, before you create any resource in Azure, there are procedures that you need to follow. You ask the customer, what do you need? What are the services you run? What is your business plan for the next 10 years? What is this? You need to follow structured framework so that you will not deploy something now, 5 years time. They will now tell you that, this thing, we did not calculated it well that time, blah, blah, blah. So that's just it. I don't know if I answered your question.
yeah, yes, sir. The practical actually answered the question because I wanted to ask if the IP address is going to adjust itself.
No, you have to
The,
increase
the
it
network
yourself. Yeah,
network
that's the
network
that that
address.
that's the work of a cloud engineer. But in the nearest future now, Microsoft is trying to deploy AI that can do all these things. You just prompt the AI, oh yeah, increase the subnet. Just go and increase the subnet. But at least let's play our own part. So that's just it. Any other question before I go? I don't have my. I just have 1 hour to go for this meeting. So any other question?
You can I'm going, sir.
Okay, no
I'm going
problem.
because of time.
So now we have created the virtual network. So now let's create a virtual machine that we will deploy on this virtual network. So now the same thing, if you click on Microsoft Azure, you have several resources that you can create. So you can create a storage account, you can create key vaults, you can create, but now I want to create a virtual machine. So you come here, virtual machine. So from here now, you can decide to create a virtual machine. So you can see here that I have virtual machines already, but I want to create a new one. So you click on this create. Then if you click on create, you have virtual machines, you have virtual machine skill set, you have presets, you have hybrid solution. So as it is here, the one we are going for is virtual machine. We are creating a virtual machine. That's what we are creating. We are not creating virtual machine skill sets. We are creating virtual machine. So what this virtual machine skill set is more or less like you can create virtual machines, like 3 virtual machines that will be doing the same thing, like having the same configuration, everything. This kind of process now is used for maybe you want to build applications that can scale. Maybe you're having a web server and you want to load balance it so that, for instance, you are a fintech company, you have an application that handles 10,000 people. You can deploy the application to 3 virtual machine skill set so that there will be a load balancer that will be distributing traffic among those virtual machines. One, one, one. Yeah, will be distributing traffic among those virtual machines. It will be distributing it. It will be distributing it. So that's just what virtual machine skill set is. As time goes on, we are going to do virtual machine skill set. But let's just understand that if you are deploying a virtual machine skill set, there have to be a load balancer that will balance traffic between the VMs. So that's just it. So, but here now we are creating a virtual machine. So we'll just select virtual machine. So just like we have for networking, we have several tabs for virtual machine. We have disk, networking, management, monitoring, advanced, and tags. So the first thing, you select your resource group. So the resource group I'm selecting here is YAF.CLOUD computing, because this is the resource group I want all our resources to be deployed. Then I'm now going to give the virtual machine a name. So I'll just call it YAF VM, which is Youth Alive VM. Then the region, it automatically selected West Europe because this resource group that we created, the location is West Europe. So automatically it will be selecting West Europe for me. So now we have availability options. So during our past question review, were asked this question that you want to prevent downtime, blah, blah, blah. What will you do? Is it availability zone, geography, or virtual machine skill sets? This one, the other one. So availability zone now, this is the definition here. It physically separates your resources within the Azure region. While VM skill set distribute VMs across zones and fault domain at scale. So we can see the difference between these three. So some of us can be taking screenshots, you can be taking screenshots, you can be documenting, you can even create, even if you are not the one that deployed these resources. As I'm deploying, you can be taking screenshots, you can be writing notes so that in the future, at least later, you can always go and look at it. Okay, this is how to create virtual machine. You can even go to YouTube. In my YouTube channel, I'm going to drop a link to my YouTube channel. I created virtual machine there. I've done some videos there. So we are going to, like, you can watch it to learn more. And that's why I created that community, because sometimes I want to have that passion to come up with things so that people can learn, and me too, I can also learn too, because that's life. So everybody will grow. So now we have availability set. So availability set now automatically distributes your VMs across multiple fault domain. But in this deployment now, I will just say no infrastructure redundancy needed. So if I select availability zone, I will be built. If I select virtual machine skill set, I will be built for it, because virtual machine skill set is not free. It will distribute your virtual machine across zones and fault domains. What this means is that in a real life scenario, maybe you have your servers in K2. What VM skill set means is that your servers now in K2, you will have the same servers in OTA. So the same application that is running in the servers in K2 will be the same application that is running in OTA. So that in case, if anything happens to the servers in K2, OTA will take over, because OTA is more or less like their fault domain in case if anything happened there. So, and you know that the cost of managing those things is expensive. What it means is that you'll be paying for power in K2, you'll be paying for power in OTA. You are spending double money, because that's the goal. So that's just the same thing. So if you are doing the same thing in the cloud too, you will pay. It's not free. Availability set, if you want to introduce your VM across multiple fault domains, you will pay. It's not, Microsoft is not giving anybody anything for free. You will pay for it. So I would just say no infrastructure needed. But in production environment, it is not the best. So you need to use either availability zone or availability set. So we'll come down now for availability options here. So you can decide to select either, no, we have already talked about this one. So for security type, we have standard, we have trusted launch virtual machine, we have confidential virtual machine. So if you select standard, you will get basic level of security for your virtual machine. If you select trusted launch virtual machine, it will protect against persistent and advanced attack on Gen 2 virtual machine with configurable features like secure boot, virtual trusted platform. So in your security type, if you go for confidential virtual machine, you are going to get more security for your virtual machine. But you know, this is just a test environment. So I'll just go for standard. So standard is fine. So this VM size now, this is where you now have the opportunity to select the operating system that you run to in your VM. So we have image. So this image now, if you are not talking, please mute your mic. So I'll just mute everybody. Okay. So for image now, you can select the image that you want to host your VM to. So you can select Windows Server 2022. You can select Windows Server 2025. You can select Windows Server 2019, depending on you. You can even select Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So Microsoft also have it. You can select Oracle Linux. You can select Windows 11 Pro. You can select Windows 10. Windows 10 is not here because Microsoft has deprecated Windows 10. So if you are using any system and the system is running Windows 10, or you're for you. So if you want to buy a system that is running Windows 11, you can reach out to me. I can give you a link or sell system to you. So that's just it. So Microsoft is not supporting Windows 10 again. That's why Windows 10 is not here. You only have Windows 11. So you can create VMs for Windows Server. You can create VMs for even Windows machine. So now this one, I'm going to create a Windows Server virtual machine, and I'm going to create Windows Server 2025. I'm going to be using, let me just use Windows Server 2022. So I'll just select it. So depending on what you want, you can select Windows Server 2022. So this is the image now. So image now is more or less like the operating system that you want to run on the virtual machine. So in a real life scenario, you can't have a system that doesn't have operating system. It's either your system is running Windows 10 or Windows 11. So cloud computing itself is just an extension of what you have in your local infrastructure. Like I always say, it's the same thing. It's more or less like learning how to configure those things. So Microsoft now develop cloud because they want everybody to be creators. Create what you want. If this is more or less like you are customizing a machine to be what you want. I want to create a machine. I want it to be Windows Server 2022. I want it to be Windows Server 2019. You can decide what you want. You can decide the operating system you want to run on it. So I will select Windows Server 2022. Then I'll come down. For the VM architecture now, you can say you want it to be 64 bits. So you can create a virtual machine with 32 bits. It's not, they don't even have it. So you can only use 64 bits processor. So here now, the size. So if you are creating a virtual machine, there are things that you need to pay attention to. First thing is this image, because you can create a Linux virtual machine also. It's not only Windows, you see Debian, you see Alma Linux. So you can create several operating systems, but let's just stick to Windows Server. And also this size. This size is very important because this is where the the specification of the virtual machine is actually. So here now we have different options. We have general purpose and we have other sizes like premium and all. So later, maybe in our next class, I'm going to continue with slide because one thing I like taking my training like I do theory, then I do practical. But all the things I'm doing today now, if I start doing the theories, it will be easy for us to understand. So now this size now, if we look at it, you can see the money here. We can see the RAM. You know, most times if you want to buy a system, if you are buying a system that is 8 gig RAM, it will be more expensive than a system that is 4 gig RAM. So this 4 gig RAM size now, if we go like this, we'll see that it is $70 per month. That is what you'll be paying for a 4 gig RAM system. But if you go for 8 gig RAM system, you'll be paying $75 per month. So depending on how the specification you want for the server, that is what it will consume. Even if you want to buy a physical server, now, if you want to buy an HP server or a Dell server, they will bill you like up to 20 million or 30 million for one server. But if you want to create the same thing on Azure, you want to create a virtual machine on Azure, that will be like a server. So now what you will do is you will now select the spec that you want. Just like you want to buy a laptop, you have to have a spec in mind. Will it be 16 gig RAM? Will it be 32? We can see now that this 32 gig RAM now is $303 per month because you cannot have 32 gig RAM system and be paying $151 per month. So cloud computing now is pay as you go. Why is it pay as you go? Because Microsoft is billing you this amount per month. But if you want to buy this server, you have to pay for everything. You need capital expenditure to buy it from the market. And once you buy it, that's all. So you can create your Windows server with different specification. Here we can see the CPU, the core. So this one now is 8 cores. This one now is 32 gig RAM. The disks that you can attach to this server is 16. You can attach just 16 disks to this server. You can't go more than 16. This is the maximum input and output processing. So you can see that it's very fast. So if you come down now, there are other workload that you can select that can give you even more than 16 GCPU. So if we come down to, let's say, all these ones now, they are because me now, my own subscription is more or less like a trainer subscription. So we can see that this one now, the vCPU is 96. I have a client that I worked for. Some of their servers, the processors are 96 cores. So this is an example of a 96 core server. Let's look at the amount that Microsoft will bill you monthly, $4,000. So depending on the specification you want, imagine now, let's say I made mistake and now select $4,000 per month. You know that if I create it, it will work. But after 1 minute or 2 minutes, all my money can just finish because $4,000 is much now. So this is the monthly cost, but they have per minute cost, per hour cost. But at the end of the month, this is the amount you pay. You won't pay more than this. So you can see why servers are expensive. If you want to buy a server now with this capacity, they have 384 gig RAM. This kind of server now, most times they use it for gaming application, all these big applications. If you want to buy a server with this specification, man, if you go and check server with 384 gig and 94 gig CPU, check the amount. You will see that it is almost, let's say, 400 million or more. So that's just it. So, but we now, we are not going to use up to that expensive amount. So what I will just select here is, I will select something cheaper. So I will select an 8 gig RAM system. So this one now, Microsoft will be billing me $75 per month. But let me see, 16 gig RAM, they will be billing me $151. But which one is better? This one will be faster, sure. But let me just go for, which one should I go for? Let me go for 8 gig RAM. It's fine. So you click on select. So once you click on select, it means that I've selected the operating the size that I need. So size is where you select the spec that you want the virtual machine to have. So virtual machine is just like physical server. If you want to buy server now, you have to have the spec of what you want to buy. So now the next thing is the administrator account. If you are those of us that install Windows 10 on system, normally the first thing after installing the operating system, it will ask you for username and password. So that username and password now is the account that you can log in to access the system. So it's still the same thing with Azure. So you need a username and password. So what I'll do is the username, I will give it my name because I don't want to forget the name. So I'll give it my name, then I'll give it a password. Then I'll give it another password. So if I want to access the virtual machine now, this is the username and password that I'll use to log in to access it. So now for public inbound ports. So these public inbound ports now are ports that you want to be able to access that servers from outside. So we have several inbound ports. You can allow RDP, you can allow HTTPS, you can allow HTTP. So depending on you, you can even allow port 22. But if you are allowing all these ports from here, it is not the best because what it means is that you are leaving it open. You are leaving it open. So for security reasons, it's better you don't allow the ports like this. Maybe you can just use just in time access. Maybe for instance, if somebody wants to access this virtual machine and he needs access to it via this port, you give the person access. Then when the person is done, you revoke the access. But if we leave it like this, it means that forever, this virtual machine, this port will be open until I delete the VM, but I'm going to leave it like that. But let's just understand that these are the inbound ports that you can allow. So for licensing, you can decide to select licensing. Would you like to use existing server license? If I say yes, that means I will use it. But since it's a virtual machine, Microsoft can give you license because you are paying for it. So I'll now go next. So if I go next now, it brings me to disk. So disk now, this is where you select the size of the OS disk. You know that C drive by default is the OS disk. It's still the same thing with cloud computing. Cloud computing, you have your OS disk, and your OS disk is your C drive. So here now, I'm going to now the disk type is SSD. We all know that SSD is very expensive. If you want to buy a laptop and they tell you that this one is SSD and this one is HDD, most times people go for SSD because it is faster, but it is more expensive. Some people that maybe they don't have enough money, they can go for HDD because it's cheaper. So it's also the same thing in cloud computing also. So my OS disk now, the size of my OS disk is going to be 127 gig. I can reduce it to, I can increase it to 256. I can increase it to 1 CD, but for what? How will my OS disk be having 1 CD? It's too much. So as a cloud engineer, you need to check all these things. Not that you just be wasting your company money because you want to be creating things. So now for the OS disk type, you can select standard HDD. Why am I selecting standard HDD? Because this is cheaper. If I use premium SSD now, or more, they will bill me. And I don't want to have something that will make me consume my money. So if I uncheck this, that means it means that if I'm deleting this VM, it will not delete the disk. But if I check it, that means if I'm deleting the VM, it will automatically delete the disk. So now we can see key management. So if you want to manage your keys, if you want to use customer managed keys, maybe you have your own keys, you can use it, or platform managed key, you can use it. But in this case now, we can only use platform managed keys because that is what is available for now. So now for data disks for YAF, you can attach a disk. You can attach an existing disk. But if you want to attach an existing disk, it's not a disk, it's not a physical disk. It's going to be a virtual disk. So we're after this, later, maybe as the time goes, we are going to create a virtual disk and I'm going to attach it to this virtual machine. It's more or less like adding an external hard disk or hard drive to your system for extra storage. We are going to see all that. So now, and you can create and attach a new disk. But if we click on create and attach a new disk now, So I'm going to call this disk YAF backup. So I'll call it YAF VM backup so that we are going to see how to attach it. So now I will now select the size. So 1 TB is too much for our backup. I can say 16 gig. Let me just use 16 gig. So I will now select it. So for the size, I don't want it to be SSD because SSD is more expensive. I'll just select HDD. So for HDD now, the highest I have is 32 gig. So I'll select 32 gig. So we are going to see this in action. So I'll click on OK. So if I click on OK, I've added an extra disk to this virtual machine. So this one I have here is the OS disk, and the OS disk is 127 gig, and the disk type is HDD, it's not SSD. So I'm now attaching an extra disk for backup so that I don't want to, so that there are some things I want to be backing up to this particular disk. So that's just it. So we are going to now do read and write. So the next thing now after disk. So let's not forget from basic, you select your resource group, you give the VM a name, you select your region, you select availability option, you select security type, you select the image, which is your operating system. Then you select the size, which is the spec. Then you give administrator username and password. If you want public inbound access, you select the port. So these are the ports that I want to be able to access my server over the public internet. So we'll just do it that way. Then we'll go to this. So from this now, we have already configured our disk and how we want it to be. Then we'll go to networking. So for networking now, we are going to see something. So remember the virtual network we created was YAF VNet. So YAF VNet now is the virtual network we created. So had it been we did not create virtual network before we started this class, that means we would have been creating a virtual network in the process of creating a virtual machine, which is not best practice. That is why before you set up any infrastructure, always create your virtual network first. So now the subnet, I don't want it to be in application subnet because this server, do I want it to be my web, to be my application server? Okay, let me say this server will be one of my application servers. So if it's going to be one of my application servers, I'll leave it in application subnet. But if it's not going to be one of my application server, I can select server subnet or domain subnet. But I want to use this server for application, to host an application. So I'll select application subnet. Then public IP now. With public IP, that's the way you can be able to access your virtual machine. If you don't want to use public IP, you can use Azure Bastion. So let's not forget, with Azure Bastion, it gives you secure access to your virtual machine over the private IP. So that's Azure Bastion. So with Azure Bastion, if you deploy Azure Bastion to this virtual network now, this VM doesn't need public IP. If you want to access it, you can access it through using Azure Bastion. So let's just go. So now we can see the inbound ports. So public port is allowed, and these are the ports: port 80, port 443, and port 3389, which is RDP. So let's not forget, HTTP port is port 80, because somebody can ask you in interview, what is HTTPS? HTTPS port is port 443. RDP port is port 3389. So remember when we wanted to create, what are they calling it? Virtual network. We saw virtual network encryption, and they said that for you to be able to use virtual network encryption, your VM need to have enable accelerated networking. If I check this and I enable virtual network encryption, then this will surface. It will work because this VM enabled accelerated networking is enabled. So if I want to load balance this VNet, I can create a load balancer, but in our next classes, we are going to explore all this. Let's not worry. I'm going to create a load balancer. I'm going to teach us how all those things work. That's why our community is there. Even if we are not able to cover what we will cover within the 6 months, with our community, we'll be creating sections back to back so that we'll be learning. So we'll go to management. So for management now, you can enable basic plan. You can use Microsoft Entra ID to log into. If you want to use Microsoft Entra ID to log into your virtual machine, you can do it. you can log in with Microsoft Entra ID. So depending on what you want for your VM. So shutdown time, you can, if you put shutdown time now, it enable automatic shutdown. What it means is that even if I don't shut down this VM, 7 p.m. it will shut down. So for a production environment, if you are using your virtual machine to host an application, if that virtual machine is shut down, users outside will not be able to access your virtual machine. And in case maybe the person wants to do business with your organization that include millions of naira, the money will go to another vendor. So you don't need to enable this. But because this is a lab environment, you can enable it because I may be working. I may forget that I've not turned off the VM. So automatically 7 p.m. it will turn it off. That's just it. And it will notify me on this my email address before it turn it off. If I put your email address now, if you want to turn it off, it will notify you. This is 7 p.m. We're about to turn off your VM. That's it. So you can also enable backup. If you want to back up the virtual machine, if you want to run guest OS updates, you can do that. So depending on you. So, but I'm going to leave this enable auto shutdown. Then I'll go to monitoring. So for monitoring, if you want to enable monitoring, you can enable boost diagnostics so that in case maybe the VM is not starting, you can check the logs to know why the VM is not starting. That is just an advantage of boost diagnostics. So you can also, this one doesn't have much settings like that. So you can go next to advanced. So in advanced now, you can add VM extension. So what extension is more or less like you want to add like third-party applications to the virtual machine. You want to install extension like Azure Monitor, Azure Automation, different things. So those things is what spices your virtual machine, which we are going to look at. We are going to look at all those things. Let's just stay tuned. So we have performance, we have host, we have capacity, we have some of all these settings. You may not really need them. So the basic things you need in creating a virtual machine is the basic, the disk, the networking. Those are the things you need. Those are the main things you need in creating a virtual machine. So we'll just review and create. So once we review and create, we'll wait for our virtual machine to be created. So once it's created, you just click on. So wait for the deployment to run. So we can see here, I will be billed $0.1040 per hour. So this is what they'll be billing me. So if this machine runs for 10 hours, they are going to pay me roughly $1 for 10 hours. So that's just it. So they will tell you the amount you'll be spending. That is why cloud is prediction. You can predict it. You can predict it. So you can just click on create here. So we'll wait for the resource to create. So while it's creating, if you have any question, you can ask. Because if resources is creating, you have to wait. You don't have any choice than to wait for the resource to finish creating. Yeah, you can ask your question. Go ahead.
You have three things to
Yes,
three
sir.
things to create a virtual machine. Network and what's that?
Your basic settings, your disk, and
Yes,
your
you have
network.
three things.
Yeah,
Okay,
basic setting, disk, and your network.
And network. Okay.
Yes.
About
I have a question, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
You were talking about I think when you were creating the virtual machine, you said if you have a Windows 10 laptop, we can't do all of this.
So what I'm trying
Mine
to say is
is
that
Windows 10
no,
Pro.
you can use Windows 10
I
to
can't
do
do
all of this. Yeah. Okay, gets me. Thank you for this question. So what I'm trying to say is that Microsoft has deprecated Windows 10. If you want to create a virtual machine now, you can create a virtual machine with any operating system, whether Ubuntu, whether Debian, whether Red Hat, any of them. You can create operating system with any of those operating systems. But Microsoft now is telling you that Windows 10 is not, they are not supporting Windows 10 again. So when we were selecting image, there was no Windows 10 there. That's it. So what I'm just trying to tell you is that if you are using Windows 10 now, you can log into Azure and create resources, but If you want to create a virtual machine that we have Windows 10 OS, you won't be able to. That's just it. That's just what I'm trying to explain. So Microsoft is not supporting Windows 10
wait,
again.
what if I'm creating this?
Yeah, go
What
ahead.
if I'm creating
Go
this
ahead.
virtual machine for another person? So
For another person. If,
I
for
can't.
instance, now
What
a
if I'm creating this
customer,
virtual machine for another person?
yeah,
So I can't create. So I can't create the virtual machine on that laptop for
no, this is
the
it.
person or something. I don't understand. Like,
You're not getting it. If you are using Windows 10 VM, if you want to access portal.azure.com, all you need is just internet. Whether your Windows is Windows 8 or Windows 7 or Microsoft don't care. But if you want to create a Windows server, a virtual machine, and the customer tells you that, Joy, I want to deploy Windows 10 virtual machine. The first thing you tell the customer is there's no way you can create a Windows 10 virtual machine because Microsoft is not supporting it again. And on the portal, you can't create Windows 10. You can only create Windows 11. You understand?
okay,
So that's just what I'm trying to tell you. So Windows 10 is not supported again. Even if you want to download Windows 10 OS from Microsoft Store, it's not there. The only thing you can get is maybe those cracked version from Otiba. Maybe if you go to Otiba now, you can see those cracked version of Windows 10. But Windows 10 operating system now is not available. You understand?
but
But if you're using it on
okay,
your system, it's still working.
okay. So secondly, I wanted to ask that all of these things we are doing, like, what does he like? What does he do? Like, what is the reason why we are doing it? Basically, like, what is the purpose of this virtual machine?
Okay. The purpose of virtual machine has several purposes. So you can use a virtual machine for storage. You can use it for application. You can use it for directory management. So you can use it for, let's say, AI. You can use it to host AI application. You can use your virtual machine for database. You can use it for different things. Just like every organization have what they focus on. There are some organizations that they focus on AI. There are some organizations that they focus on fintech, like InterSwitch, and and other companies like what's the other name? OP. Those ones now they are fintech, and other companies like, let's say, what's it? Dr. Brown, Dr. Brown Consulting. So Dr. Brown Consulting now, his own focus is data. So every company with what they focus on. So what Dr. Brown will use virtual machine for is to host database. What InterSwitch will use virtual machine for is to host application. What the other guys will use virtual machine for is for, like, let's say, other things. So you can use virtual machine for different purpose. So this virtual machine now that we created here, you can use it for application. So the reason why we are creating the virtual machine now is that it is a infrastructure as a service, because you are using Microsoft infrastructure. You are working with Microsoft infrastructure. Normally, this same virtual machine now, you can have it in your local environment, but you will buy it first. After buying it, you will be paying for electricity that will be servicing the server. And you also pay for people that will come and install it. And aside that, you know that with time, the server might get obsolete. Like now, Windows 8 is out of support. Nobody is using generation 8 again. So the virtual machine is more or less like is is like a server that can still do what you can do with your normal Windows server on-prem, but depending on what you want to use it for. So you can use a virtual machine for anything that you want to use it for. So that just think of anything.
All right, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. So does anybody have any question? I think this is where we are going to stop today. Maybe I'm going to connect to the virtual machine, but you can ask your question. Ask your question. Okay, Gabriel.
All right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying. Hello.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Your voice was breaking.
All right. All right. I'm really enjoying the class. My question is this: you said when in the course of the class, you said paying for but when you went to pay for subscription, that they don't accept Nigerian cards. So if you
Yeah.
are to work, if peradventure after this class, after the training and everything, you know this thing very well and we acquire the certification, then and you a company you want to work for a company now. So how do you make payment
Okay.
since they don't accept Nigerian cards?
Yeah. That's a very inquisitive question, and I like the curiosity of this your question. That's a very good one. So we have Microsoft partners. So Microsoft partners now can help you acquire this subscription. So once they are help you acquire the subscription, so they will be helping you pay. So you don't need to make payments. So that is why most Microsoft have partners in different countries and different states. So that if customers want to use Microsoft Cloud, so they can work with those their partners. Then those their partners will help them purchase the subscription, and all they just need to do is to create the resource they want to create. And also, a big company, there's no big company in this world, like in Nigeria now, that doesn't have domiciliary account. It's not possible. If you are not ready to have domiciliary account, then you never start. So you can have MasterCard, do as in MasterCard dollar account. So if you have dollar card with domiciliary, you can use it to create subscription. It has to be a DOM account, a domiciliary account from one of
Oh,
all these big Nigerian banks, which most company have it. Most company have it. But most times companies don't even like buying with their card themselves. They like going through a partner. So that's just it. So
all
any other
right.
person,
Thank you
any
very
other
much,
person,
sir.
Odushola.
Thank you, sir.
You have answered my question already.
Okay,
Can you hear me,
thank
sir?
you. Yeah, ask your question.
Okay, sir. From what we from all the practical we go through right now, so we are able to go and understand. But I was thinking, because I'm just talking from my own perspective, I love practical. Immediately I see it, or you just want to have a quiet time and do the practical, follow your steps, your answer to understand it more. Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you.
So in that sense, if I'm going to go through my own time and like do my own practical, so I have to subscribe to Microsoft Azure account, right?
As a student now, you don't have to subscribe. We have well, I want to look for a sandbox. So Microsoft have two things. They can give you a sandbox that you can use to practice what you are learning, or they can even give you, let's say, like a simulation. So what that simulation is more or less like is simulating what you will do in a real life scenario. You understand? So if you are following those simulation, it will be as if you are the one creating it. So create we can see sandbox exercise, explore the learn sandbox. So I'm going to be sharing all these links. So see compute, create a virtual machine. So with all this, you can even use it secret configure network access. So I'm going to share all these links to the chat now so that anybody that wants to get his hand gets it. The person will not say, I don't have subscription. No. Even if you don't have subscription, you have something that Microsoft has given to you that you can use because they know that people will want to learn. People will people will be inquisitive. So they have all these things available. So I'll just be dropping them one after the other, the exercises. So if you go to that link now, just follow the process. So I'm going to open one so that we'll see how it works before we go, so that we can all practice and learn. You can see now this one is to create a virtual machine. They will give you a sandbox on creating a virtual machine. So I'll be dropping them. So, and also, let's even take our time to read all these things. Because if you are going for interview, they will ask you all these questions like to test if you really understand all these things. So it's not something that you can fake. You can't fake it. But although some organizations they are not looking for somebody that is perfect. They are looking for people that they can work with. Even if you are very, very intelligent, you are very good. There's an organization that cannot employ you if you don't have good character. If you don't have, let's say, that particular, like they don't want stubborn people because people that are too stubborn, like if they can come and spoil things for your organization, they can pursue your customers. So they don't want people that will come and just spoil things for them. So that is why if you are here and you are a child of God, you don't have any disadvantage because if you go for an interview and they see that this guy he has idea of this thing, at least he know God. You understand? They were like, oh, I beg, let's just employ this guy because actually there's no skill anybody cannot learn. If they employ you today now as a cloud engineer with highest 3 months, 6 months, you may even be better than me. Depending on the organization you work, you may even be better than me. So that's it. So there's no limit to what anybody can achieve. So I'm going to start with this one. So I want to open one of the exercises. So I'm going to open these exercises for create a blob storage. So let me open it on another tab so that we'll see how it works. So now this is how it is. If you open it, these are the instructions that you follow. You first of all you go to create a resource, then select storage account, then you go to create, you do all these things. So they haven't given you the steps and everything you follow, but it's more or less like a link direct. So you understand? So so that's just it. So somebody is saying they need a link for cybersecurity. Let me check. Let's go to XC-900 Microsoft link. So introduction to security. So let me open this one first. So I will drop all the links, don't worry. So if you follow that lane, like this exercise here now, if I click on sign in to activate this sandbox, so it will ask me for you need an email, a Outlook account or a Gmail account. So once you sign in, it authenticates you. Then you come here, you now click on this link. So once you click on this link, it takes you to Azure portal. It will now activate a subscription for you that you can use to create all these things. So this one now is to create virtual machine. But the virtual machine you create, you are going to use Azure Cloud Share. You are not going to use GUI, just like the one I created, but it's still the same thing. It's good you get your hands dirty on how to create with Cloud Share and how to create with GUI. So I'm going to drop my YouTube channel link. Don't worry, I'll drop it. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I beg. But let me look for the security, and also you can share with your friends. And by God's grace, that's why I created that community because I feel lazy sometimes to be coming up with classes. So I want, like, okay, I will know that at least I have people that will push me. Let's do this, let's do this section, let's do this one, let's do the other one, and that kind of thing. So, and if I'm not available, somebody will, okay, I want to volunteer. I can take this topic. I can do this. As you are doing it, I'll post it on my LinkedIn. I'll post it on my YouTube channel. Even YouTube, people will know you. Before you know, they'll be reaching out to you on LinkedIn for employment or the likes. So that's just it. So everybody you'll be posting on LinkedIn, posting on all these things. It helps. It helps. So for security, unfortunately, I've not seen any sandbox for security, but I can do some of the labs, but not today, Sha, because you can see here, my battery is just remaining. There's no light. Rain is falling. Rain is falling in Lagos. So before we go, let me just go to my YouTube channel and drop the YouTube link. So let me copy the channel URL.
Please, the last question. Thank you for the classes. I understand. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Out of which I registered late, we didn't see any update from Microsoft about email that, and we didn't collect any voucher.
You didn't collect any voucher. That is why
Yes, register.
that was what I understand. So because you register late now, you won't be able to get voucher for now. But Microsoft is always giving what are they calling it? Vouchers. So since you are with Mr. Martins, don't worry. We are going to like be giving you updates on any time that there's vouchers or anything. So they always do free vouchers. So somebody is asking, security sandbox is only available for XC200. Yeah, you can get sandbox from XC200. So you guys can go there and check. So there are sandbox that you can use to learn. So in our community, we are not limited to only Azure. So some people can come and even teach different things. You understand? So everybody just learn. Post on LinkedIn. So this is my own YouTube channel. So I have some videos here on cloud service types, then creating a virtual machine, shared responsibility, what is cloud computing and deployment types, then creating how to, this one was when I was preparing for my AZ 700 exam. I will still create a lot of videos because there are a lot of things I need to create here too and post in this particular part. Then creating storage account part one. I've not done part two, but I'll do it, by God's grace. So Ademola, ask your question. My battery will soon go down.
Thank you very much, sir. Well done, sir, thank you for the job well done. Actually, I want to ask two questions. The first one is when you were talking about physical servers, I was just using, like, when you have physical servers, after a while, it becomes obsolete. Unlike the virtual server, can it be upgraded? Maybe after you are using it for a while, you can upgrade virtual. But what about physical? Is it not upgradable?
Physical servers, the only way you can upgrade it is to buy new one. That's just it. And you know that you can spend money. You can spend money to buy new server. You understand? New servers, like one of the projects I just finished recently, is a infrastructure. They spent 1 billion to upgrade their infrastructure. Over 1 billion. It's not me, it's my organization that got the project. So, but I was part of the team that worked with them. Over 1 billion naira. You can see some servers here. This one is 7 million. Some organizations have this kind of servers. This one itself is even low spec. These are example of servers, physical servers. You can see some, depending on the spec. Let me even say HP server with, let's say, 30 with, let me say 60 core. 60 core. So you will see. So this one now is 5 million. This one is 7 million. And all these ones that are 7 million now. It depends on the disk. So depends on the engine that is inside. So HP will bill you. And all these things you get them from abroad. You have to pay dollar cost, pay this one, pay for different things. So if you click on this link now to see servers, so this is just an example of servers, like something like this. I was talking about private cloud. So if I go to click on private data center, so you see how a private data center is. So this is an example of a private data center. To set up all this infrastructure can cost more than 20, can cost up to 2 billion. These things you see here. Because aside the things you will buy, the people that will come and deploy those things, they go bill you. The company can bill you like 500 million for deployment. You will spend. So, but in cloud computing now, you don't need to have all these things. You will just rent. Just rent from Microsoft. Microsoft will be paying you, will be giving you monthly costs that you'll be spending. So
Hello? I can't hear you,
I
sir.
I think I
Can
think
hear
he's
you.
gone because of his battery. Maybe he's gone because of
Fine.
his battery.
But
Yeah.
please, people in the house, please, I have a question.
Ask your question.
But I score 80%, they won't be certified for the Microsoft exam. Any exam is taken. Until they score 80%, they won't be certified. How true is that, please?
My my system went off, so that's just where we are. So I hope we understand physical servers now and the others. I hope we get it now. So did I
Please
answer your question?
answer.
Okay. Does anybody have any other question before we
Yes,
call it a day?
Yeah, Ademola has a question. Ademola has a question.
Yeah, Demola, please ask your question.
please, sir. Sorry to bother you with this question. When you wrote your own exam, please, what was the pass mark for certification?
Yeah, the pass mark for certification is